Hey guys, welcome back to the final part of this three-part series on how to fly the default Airbus A320, the new Microsoft Flight Simulator. So we're nearly 60 miles from TNT, after which point we begin the standard terminal arrival route into Manchester. Now, in the last video you heard me telling you that this isn't quite accurate in terms of the actual start. I actually have the charts up in front of me on my phone. For those of you with a Navigraph subscription, that really helps because you can see in detail what you should be doing. So basically, straight after passing Trent TNT, we should hit the waypoint Dane, at which point in real life or on VATSIM you do not pass the Dane waypoint until you've been given further clearance by Manchester Air Traffic Control. What they will then do after passing Dane is give you vectors to the ILS, either runway 23 or runway 5, heading this way. So we're just going to pretend that they're going to give us the vectors into runway 23 because I don't like the default ATC on here. I don't use it. I'm always usually flying on VATSIM. Before we do that, however, we have to set up some more details in the approach. So what we're going to do is go to the performance page, and at the moment you'll see that we're in the cruise phase of the flight. The next phase will be the descent phase. We don't need to do anything about that. However, this page here, the approach phase, well, the aircraft needs to know a little bit more information about what it has to expect. So, again, using just a free app on my phone, you can get all the latest weather and metals for any airport around the world. So the latest weather at the moment, because we're using live mode at the moment for this flight, so the latest weather at the moment is the QNH in Manchester is 1022. The temperature is 11 and the wind is 170 at 4 knots. I'll just pop those in. Now again, a couple of things here which really you need approach charts for. So if you're if you've got a subscription to Navigraph, then that's great. If not, you can leave the transition altitude blank. However, one thing which is important is DH, the decision height. Normally, for most airports around the world, the decision height is 200 feet. That is the height at which you have to decide, are you going to continue the approach to the runway, or are you going to go around if you're not fully configured and all stable for the approach for landing. So we've just passed Trent and we're now passing or heading towards what should be Dane. However, that's not being given to us. Now if you can see these purple numbers here on these waypoints, well, they are the constraints. The constraints basically tell you need to be above or below a certain altitude at that point, and you can actually see them as well on the flight plan here. Look, if we scroll down, it should tell us, although there we go. So at this particular waypoint, FI23R, wherever that is, we should be above 3,500 feet. Obviously, if it has a B there, that means you should be below 3,500 feet. So we're now approaching Manchester directly, but that's not going to get us lined up quite nicely with the ILS. So what we're going to do is we're going to begin our descent. I've left the seatbelt signs on because it was only a very short flight, so if not, you would have turned those back on. And we're going to begin the descent now to about 5,000 feet, and if we push that in, that tells the aeroplane and gives the aeroplane control over the rate of descent. However, I want to control this, so I'm going to pull the button or the bug and it's now an open descent, so we're just dropping out of the sky basically. Let's control it, pull this, and I don't want to descend quite that fast. We'll descend at a rate of 2,500 feet per minute. Now what I would like to do is, I don't particularly want to fly over Manchester, just have to turn around and go back again, and you wouldn't do that in real life either. The air traffic control would now start to vector you to line up with the runway, which is this line here. So what we're going to do, we're going to turn the aircraft to start to head towards these points. Now to do that we need to come out of manage mode. You remember how to do that? So we pull the heading book, and you can see now there's a big green line saying that's the route we're going to follow because you told me that's where you want to go. We're now going to turn that. You can see the blue triangle moving, and we're going to head over towards the start of the ILS approach. Zoom in a little bit as well. There we are, look. So if you look, the constraints are also shown in magenta on here. Now this one's incorrect. It's telling you to be at 3,500 feet, very close to the airfield. Well, that would be a rather abrupt landing, wouldn't it? So we're actually going to be at 3,500 feet by the time we get to here. So if you look, that's where I pointed it. We need to come around a little bit more. And there we are. We're not going to head directly to it. We want to be able to swing in to the approach. If we went directly to it, then we'd have a very sharp turn to have to come around and line up, and that wouldn't give us much time to get ourselves established on the ILS approach. It's almost worth flying in exactly the opposite direction of the runway, which in this case would be 050, runway 5, opposite of runway 23. We're not going to fly quite to that extreme, but yeah, so we'll get to about here and get a beam that fixed point, and then we'll turn around and intercept the ILS. One other thing on short flights is you don't get to enjoy the nice visuals, do you? Spend most of the time looking at the instruments, but that's okay, that's what we're here to do. Now let's see how good this default Airbus is. We're about to pass 10,000 feet, which means we should drop our speed to 250 knots, because you're not allowed to go above 250 knots below 10,000 feet. However, the Airbus has not done that automatically for us, so I'm going to set that manually. So we'll pull that, and we'll just slow that down. 247, close enough. Now if the aircraft won't slow down, of course, because it's descending at a decent rate, then that's when we use the spoilers to give us a little bit of a speed brake. And you can see that speed's dropping nicely now. The engine's spooling up as it hits the target speed. Might just going to slow us down a little bit more now. So the speed we want to be at really when we're going to make our final approach is not more than 200 knots. Sometimes less. You get speed restrictions from air traffic control, or on the approach charts tells you that you can't go any faster than a certain speed. But just for this demonstration, 200 knots is fair enough. However, given the descent rate, we're going to need those speed brakes again because we're climbing. In the real Airbus, of course, if you pop the speed brakes out, you get a warning here telling you that the speed brakes are out. I'm sure that will come. Okay, so you can see now we can start to make our turn to line up with the ILS. I am going to continue descending though. I want to descend to 4,000 feet, so we'll just pull that, and you can confirm that there, look, 4,000 feet, and set the descent rate not quite that fast. Let's bring that up, shall we? See, this is one of the bugs. It doesn't always descend as you ask it to. You look, it's about to smash through the 4,000 feet thing, so if we push forward here, that should level off the aircraft. It hasn't done, so I'm going to enter manage mode here and hope that this pulls it up. No. Okay, we're about to smash into the Pennines, so I'm going to take manual control for a minute. If you pull up on your side stick, you will automatically disengage the auto throttle, the autopilot, and you had the clicks there, so that's fine. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to set that to 3,500 or 400, engage that, and turn the autopilot back on. There we are. Okay, so we need to make a left turn, don't we, to go back towards lining up with the ILS. Before we line up with the ILS, you have to turn the landing system on. Here we go. And that will then bring up the purple writing, which tells you all about the ILS that's programmed in. So we are currently 21 miles away. And it's not giving us the glide slope just yet. We're probably a bit too far away for that. 200 knots, realistically, we can put the flaps down. Flaps 1. Zoom in on the map just to get a little bit more. Ooh, some wind there. I do like the weather though in this simulator, far better than anything else I've encountered. So this is the line we're going to be following here. So we're not going to be far off. Continue to turn towards that. You can actually see now, oh dear, there we go, we're actually lining up with the ILS. Now, if you press localizer, then, and turn this over to the ILS, that now says localizer, and the aircraft is going to follow the ILS. It will not, if you've already got localizer engaged, follow the glide slope. In order to do that, you need to press the approach button. You can't have both on. The localizer will only follow left or right of the ILS. Approach will follow left or right, above and below on the glide slope. And you can see the airport over there, look.
2,500.
So, let's configure the aircraft for landing. We can't land at this speed, it's far too fast. So, we're going to reduce speed now to about 150 to begin with, and extend the flaps to flaps 3. We're still quite far way out actually, 17 miles out, but that's okay. We like long finals, it gives the aircraft a chance to stabilise. Now you can see here that we're still set to 3,400 feet, which the aircraft will maintain. However, because we've armed the approach, it's already got the localizer established, which is why it's in green, and you can see under here it's got the altitude that we've asked it to stay at in green, but in blue underneath it, armed, is the glide slope. So as soon as the glide slope starts to hit the centre, that will change. What I'm going to do now is turn the constraints off, because for some unknown reason it keeps flashing there, which is quite off-putting. And I've lost sight of the airfield at the moment. Must be some clouds in front of us, but that's okay. You can see we're not actually flying in a perfectly straight line at the moment. That's because we've got the wind blowing us over to the left. So that's good. just keeping an eye on the glide slope now, as it's starting to slowly move down. So, to prepare the aircraft for landing, we need to set the auto brakes. You've got the choice of medium or low. Manchester's got a pretty decent length of runway, so we'll go with low, and it's not raining, so we don't need to worry about our stopping distance. And we arm the spoilers again, which means as soon as we touch down, the spoilers should deploy. The glide slope's coming down now. Look.
2,500.
And we're constantly getting the calls out of the ground proximity warning. You'll get a lot of those, particularly flying into Manchester over the Pennines. It's disappeared again now, look. Clearly the hillside below us has dropped away. And there we go, look, it turns green because it's telling us that we've captured the glide slope. So now we're on the descent rate. The normal descent rate is usually about 743 feet per minute, I think, on a normal 3-degree glide slope. So you're looking for this to hopefully be around the 700 feet mark. So we're going to reduce this now to about 140 and gear down, full flaps. Did I pop the landing lights on? No, I didn't. They should have been on a bit sooner than this. And taxi lights on as well. We'll have a view of Manchester as we approach here. This is probably the most sightseeing I've been able to do on this flight. There we go. You can let the aircraft, of course, go in managed mode for the speed on the ILS approach, but I find it still a little bit buggy. I prefer to look after that myself. When we get to about 1,000 feet, I generally tend to disengage the autopilot and fly the rest in manually. However, we are still not going to touch the throttles. If you look, they look like they're really far forward. They're being controlled because they're in this CL, the climb detent. Once we get the call out near the runway, we'll hear 50, 40, 30, 20, and then you may hear the phrase retard, which means pull the throttles all the way back, at which point the aircraft will flare with a little bit of help from you. The auto throttle will disengage, and you will not get what a lot of people are telling us on the forums, the alpha floor kick-in, which is whereby the aircraft thinks it's not going to land, it's going to stall, so it throttles the engines up to make sure it doesn't crash. It's a safety feature, but we don't want that safety feature to be engaged when we're about to land, so you must pull the throttle all the way back to the bottom when you get about 20 feet up on the call out. This is a little windier than I expected. What was the wind that we popped in there on the performance? So the ground speed should be 1704, a little bit higher up here. Still see we're coming in slightly sideways and crabbing into that, that's fine. Okay, so obviously I'm going to concentrate on the actual landing. So what you'll see me do is you'll hear the autopilot disengage with the beeps in a few moments' time. When we get the call out of 50, 40, 30, 20, at that point, as long as we're good, I will pull the throttle all the way to the back, and hopefully we'll have a nice touchdown. If not, this will be an embarrassing end to the videos. Word of note as well, I'm about to disengage the autopilot. That does not disengage the auto throttle. The auto throttle will still keep the aeroplane at 140. So here we go.
Retard. 5.
Auto brakes and spoilers doing their job and slowing down nicely. I'm not applying any brake pressure at all. The aircraft's doing that all on its own because we set those. And there we are on the rollout. Slightly heavier landing than I'd have hoped for, but any landing you can walk away from is a good one. I'll pull off the taxiway there, and job done. So, I hope that explains a little bit about the A320, some of the quirks of the default A320, and how to go about using the MCDU and planning everything that needs to be done. A lot of the work is done on the ground at the departure airport before you even take off, isn't it? And then you've just got the approach details to pop in there, and then yeah, off we go. It's not that cold, we don't need those anymore. Right, if you enjoy this, I will try and get some more up there to answer any other questions that may come in, but for now it's oh goodness me, that's late. Right, bedtime. Alright, thanks for watching everyone. Night night.